So today, I'm gonna break a sort of unwritten personal rule of mine. Today I'm gonna wade into the cesspool of current events. You know, I may allude to current events in past videos, but I usually try to relate it to something that I consider to be tried and true, sort of to help you navigate through this current paradigm that we live under. You know, I don't like talking about current events too, because there's so many people that do it and that can do a better job covering it than I ever could. I've had it in my mind to make this video for about a month and a half or so now, and I'm absolutely astounded, honestly, at the frenetic pace that the news cycle takes on. I suppose it's where everyone has a smartphone in their pocket, widespread availability of Wi-Fi, and everyone's got a camera in their pocket. I suppose we are more inundated with up-to-date news than we ever have been in the history of mankind. And you know, here in America, we follow this sort of frenetic and even schizophrenic at times 4-year election cycle. And it's really baffling to me. It's like every couple of hours there's a news story that breaks. And you know, it's very difficult to discern what is real and what is fake. But before I delve into it, I want to take a second. I know the topic at hand that everybody's considering, thinking about. Trump's attempted assassination. Him choosing J.D. Vance as his running partner. And so many other stories that are out there. But I want to take a second and remember a guy, a man by the name of Corey, and I'm probably butchering his last name, and forgive me, but I believe his name was Corey Comperatore. Probably butchering that. But this man was a good man, and he was the casualty, the fatality. He was killed during the Trump assassination. And from what I've read, he was trying to shield his wife and his 2 daughters when the shots started flying. We should remember this guy, because from what the little I know about him, really it could be people it could have been one of us, you know. Myself, I'm not one to go to political rallies or anything like that, but I've seen the pictures, you know. Seen a picture of him. He was a fisherman holding up a nice smallmouth bass he had caught. He was a church member, had a family. He was a river to his family. So we should remember him. And although, you know, I'm gonna make a safe guess here and say he probably doesn't have a lot of the views that many of us have, but nevertheless, he was a family man. He may have just been a conservative or libertarian, but we should remember that guy. And I think it illustrated a point that the system, they want us destroyed. They want us murdered. Now, I'm not going to talk much about Trump's assassination per se. I mean, you can just spend 30 minutes scrolling, whether it be on Twitter or Telegram or whatever, or just turn on the news, and you'll hear a lot of different things. But one thing that struck me is in the 24 to 48 hours or so after the assassination attempt, and I heard 5 different possibilities of who the shooter was. And I guess I assume they killed him. They lit his ass up immediately after he started squeezing off shots. I heard 5 different possibilities. One was a Chinese national. Then I heard a guy named, which I guess the guy's name was Thomas Crooks or something. There was some there was some guy with long blonde hair and a massive underbite that was impersonating, and I've seen pictures posted that he was the assassin. I also seen another guy named Maxwell Urick, and there was also another guy who was like an Italian or something. I think his name was, what was his name? Mark Violets. So see, there's such a great opportunity for false information immediately after an event to be passed off as real. So that's one reason why I don't like immediately talking about current events. So, and I've also heard a lot of people say, not a lot, but you know, the conspiracy-minded people, they come out and say that the whole thing was staged. Myself, I understand the urge to look into that, but I don't think this is one time I don't think that sort of conspiracy theory is valid in the least. I forget where it was, but I do recall reading something. It was either a spook in the CIA or some intelligence that said when you have the population that doesn't believe anything, you know that our job is complete. So deception certainly exists. And I will not deny, I don't believe necessarily that this gunman acted alone. I know the FBI and these various investigative agencies will probably try to portray it as that to cover their own asses, but I would not doubt that there was a conspiracy of some kind. But as far as the shooting itself, I believe it was real. I believe it happened, you know. So, what does all of this mean and how does it relate to us? I mentioned a few minutes ago the frenetic 4-year election cycle. And I do have to say that, you know, there's a line from a song that Roger Daltrey sang for The Who back in the 70s. The song's called Won't Get Fooled Again. And I believe the closing line of that song is, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You know, I'm not making predictions. I'm not in the business of making predictions on this channel in the least. But these are some things that I could possibly see happening over the next 4 years. I don't think that there is any possibility that Biden will win re-election. He was immensely unpopular beforehand the past few years, rightfully so. His abject failure to defend the border, inflation, and the world, if you look at it geopolitically, is kind of a powder keg at the moment. You got Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, China, Taiwan. It's been an abject failure not only abroad, but domestically. So, I figure that Trump will be elected. And he chose J.D. Vance as his running partner. Both of these people are Zionists. Trump, of course. J.D. Vance might even possibly be an even bigger Zionist than Trump himself. May not be too different than Nikki Haley is. Now, J.D. Vance is someone that I don't have a very high opinion of, to be honest. I think he's a fake-ass hillbilly. I think he might have partially been raised in Breathitt County, Kentucky, up there in eastern Kentucky. He wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy. I have only read a few excerpts of that book. I don't care for the guy. He went to Yale Law School. He's a fake-ass hillbilly. I think he was raised in Ohio, or that's where he lived. He's an even bigger Zionist. Now, Trump is definitely not out of the woods yet. He could still be assassinated. At a rally, or wherever. You know, I'm going to play a video for you guys here in a few minutes. I have noticed within some of these so-called, I guess, white nationalist circles, or maybe the broader dissident right, which I have grown to abhor that term. I don't really consider myself left or right. I know some would probably disagree with that, but you know, I hate the term dissident right. But what I will say is I've noticed that there is a bit of a element of what I would call war conditioning that is currently happening. I've seen it online, and I've got a video for you guys that I found on Telegram, and I've seen some so-called Wignats, white nationalists, post this shit. I'm going to play it for you here in a few, and it's only like, I think, a 4-minute video. I'll give you a few thoughts on it. But I do feel like we are being conditioned, the populace is being conditioned into accepting perhaps more foreign wars. And you know, even in this country, I remember seeing shortly after the assassination attempt of Trump, Civil War was trending, and hell, wasn't there a movie that was released back in the spring or so called Civil War? I've not watched it, probably not going to waste my time with it. I've read a little bit about the premise, and it sounds kind of stupid to me, so I'm not going to waste time, but it's really interesting that the Hollywood industrial complex decided to put out a movie called Civil War at such a time when our country is immensely polarized. So what could I see happening? You know, there is a chance that Trump doesn't make it 4 years. We could have J.D. Vance put in there. And I would say J.D. Vance would show his true colors as a sort of just neocon war hawk. Also, I could see Trump being elected as being a means of sort of throwing the white working class and white middle class. It's going to be throwing them a bone of sorts. Myself, I suppose if you're an accelerationist, Biden would be the perfect candidate. Or if you're very anti-establishment, he would be perfect, because look at what's going on in our country currently. You know, if there is one thing I suppose I could give Trump credit for, is the fact that his economic policies were pretty good, I guess. And I'm not an economics expert, but back during the Trump years, you know, things were cheaper. And I'm looking at this just from a working class perspective. I'm starting to wonder the rate of inflation. I'm starting to wonder if Trump's policies could fix it. I mean, it's, you know, financially, I am not having a good time myself. I've noticed, at least since January, I cannot get ahead to save my fucking life. And you know, some of you will be like, well, so no, you just had a child. What did you expect? Yes. Yes, I did. But you know, it's not really that, I don't think. I have a babysitter. She does an outstanding job. She has a family herself. She lives down the street from us. But she gives us a hell of a deal. You know, we did not want to put our daughter into a daycare of any kind. I much more trust my neighbor than I would some daycare. I'm not, you know, trying to say daycares or daycare workers are all horrible, but I have heard of horror stories, you know. I don't know what she's doing back there, but anyways, she gives us a hell of a deal, and it's much cheaper per week than if we had chosen a daycare. The daycares that we did look at for price comparison reasons. It's not fucking that. We don't have to buy formula. My wife's a milk truck. My daughter's never had to drink formula. It's not that, you know. It's every fucking thing else that's massively expensive. It's every fucking thing else. I am not enjoying the decline financially. Although if you're an accelerationist, I suppose worse is better. So I'm not enjoying it in this very moment. Perhaps Trump could give us, give the working class and middle class a little financial relief, but I don't know. And what I will say is this. For those of you who are interested in the future of this country and you care about it as a whole, myself, I'm more of an Appalachian separatist, and I view the federal government as the ultimate of evils, as I've mentioned thousands of times, it seems. I'll say this. It's going to take more than 4 years to fix this country's problems, this union's problems. It's going to take much longer, I believe. And I would be wary of this sort of war conditioning that we see happening. I'd be extremely wary of that. If I was a young man, I would not join the military. In the past, I have sort of flip-flopped on that issue. I can understand people want to get skills. It's a surefire job, but right now, hell no. You know, it's like Dino sang on Goy Talk. I'm proud to be an American, where my country's run by heaps, and I cannot wait for my son to die in a war in the Middle East. So, I would be wary of that. I would be wary of that war conditioning. I could see J.D. Vance being used to encourage heritage Appalachians to get a false sense of patriotism in young heritage Appalachians and sign up for the military, which, hell, from everything I've heard, the military, they're having a lot of problems with recruiting. And I mean, you look at, I see it sometimes, I look at the younger generation, and it's like, I don't think these people, a lot of these people could make it through boot camp. Some of them could, but I don't know. Let's see. Anything else? Oh yeah, what I wanted to say too, you know, they talk about Civil War. I could see the next 4 years, or possibly the end, up until the 2030s, next 6 years. I could see it resembling a sort of mixture of America back in the 1960s, a lot of the unrest and chaos. I could see it being a mixture of that and the Italian years of lead. I don't know if this country will pop off in a sort of civil war. I don't know if it's possible. I seen an interesting post that my friend... You okay, babe? Yeah, she good. I seen an interesting post that my friend Blunt Force Tuna posted on Twitter, and he mentioned that he had been talking with one of his Bosnian friends who was present, who even had shrapnel in his body still, in his shoulder, from the conflict back in the late 90s, the Balkan Wars. And he's like, Blunt Force had asked him, he's like, hey, I think our situation's starting to look like your situation in Bosnia that you had to fight in when you were a teenager. And the Bosnian friend replied, well, no, I think it's got the potential to be much worse, because in Bosnia, we had at least defined sides. Over here in America currently, we're all mixed together. So, you know, I would just encourage you guys to sort of stick to what's tried and true. What's called the classic message. You know, just prepare yourself, try to get rural, try to increase your autonomy, and go from there. And try not to get too caught up in current events. Try not to let that shit emotionally shake you, you know? And also spend time with your family. You know, have some fun. Don't just be extremely nervous and paranoid and just depressed. You know, I've said this before, just because the society around you is an absolute shit show and everything's in decline does not mean that you yourself have to be in a state of decline as well. So I'll be back in a second. I'm at my destination here, and I'll probably have a few more thoughts to add, and then we'll play that video about war conditioning. You know what? I'm gonna save those two videos probably for a live stream at a later date. I don't want this video to be any longer than it already is. I'll save it for later and really dissect them. One of them is NATO propaganda. The other one is, I am not sure who posted this, who's behind it. I found it on a Telegram channel, but it sounds like propaganda, or programming I should say, that comes straight from the State Department and pumped into the malleable minds of a dissident right. But we'll save that for a later day. It all sounds like war conditioning to me, and trying to invoke a cheap sense of fake patriotism. But you know, I would just stick to the classical message like I mentioned a few minutes ago. Get your, take care of your family, take care of yourself, take care of your health, and try to build something. Try to build something that's sturdy to handle the potential chaos, something within your community, something local. You know, that's what I like to see. Try to build parallel structures and try to gain a sense and a little bit of autonomy. But anyways, that's all I got to say. Thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.